If you've got munitions, laser-guided munitions that are so sophisticated that they can take out, a guy in an SUV from 30,000 feet, how do you blow up a church with a giant cross on top of it?
It was just an accident, Tucker. It was an accident.
There it is, the moment Tucker Carlson, king of Christian nationalism, a man so far right that he fell off Fox News, championed what's typically seen as a left-wing position. In recent months, this conservative Goliath has turned his fire on the US-Israeli alliance.
I'm just asking what AIPAC does. My understanding, having known a lot of people who work at AIPAC, is that it lobbies on behalf of the Israeli government.
Wrong.
Oh, okay.
And in this conversation, we see exactly why. For years, progressives have tried breaking through to the right with facts, data, and meticulously sourced reports, but it never worked. That's not how it works. Populist politics doesn't run on spreadsheets or policy briefs. It runs on identity, grievance, and the gnawing feeling that elites are laughing at you behind closed doors. Ana Kasparian understands this, and her approach succeeds where others have failed. Far from bringing charts and studies, she went straight for Tucker's red line.
You're not allowed to use my tax dollars to bomb churches.
Why hello, my fellow apes. I hope you are well. This exchange from Tucker's long-form interview with Ana Kasparian, progressive host of The Young Turks, is something that you do not see in modern politics. A right-wing populist adopting left-wing moral outrage as his own. Not because she changed his mind, but because Ana knew exactly what she's doing. She fused her progressive critique with the identity politics and elite skepticism that Tucker's audience lives and breathes. See, Ana understands the man sitting across from her. She knows that his brand, however steeped in nationalism, however riddled with conspiracies, always prioritizes two things: his audience's sense of betrayal and his personal identity as an outsider telling forbidden truths. So she doesn't try converting him with appeals to global justice. She doesn't bother with statistics. She makes it about Americans being betrayed, about taxpayers being robbed, and yes, about churches being bombed. And in Tucker's America, those wounds cut too deep to ignore. Alright, so this is genuinely crazy. Data brokers are compiling reports on everyday people, like you, that run 11 pages or more. They've got address histories, phone numbers, relatives' names, they're even tracking shopping patterns. Now here's the thing, these data broker companies are raking in billions, yes, billions, selling our personal information without our consent to basically anyone who pays. Marketers, scammers, spammers, stalkers, you name it. And sure, they're legally obligated to remove your data when asked, but they intentionally make the process impossibly complicated. We're talking about hundreds of sites you'd need to contact separately. Today's sponsor, Aura, does the hard work for you. Here's what really sets Aura apart. It's an all-in-one solution. You get dark web monitoring that alerts you when your info surfaces, real-time credit and banking fraud detection, round-the-clock identity monitoring for security, and integrated VPN, antivirus, and password manager. Plus US-based support that actually picks up when you call. Other companies might offer one or two of these features, but none of them give you this complete package for the price. Plus, if the worst happens, they've got your back with up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. After switching to Aura, people watch them systematically wipe data from dozens of these predatory sites. Spam calls? Practically extinct. Targeted ads following you around? Gone. That creeping feeling when someone's watching your every move online? Finally put to rest. Look, it's seriously infuriating knowing these companies are profiting from personal information, but finally, there's something to be done about it. Try Aura free for 14 days at aura.com/rationalityrules. During those 2 weeks, you'll discover exactly where your data is being exploited, and Aura will already be removing it from broker sites without you lifting a finger. Don't leave yourself exposed anymore. Thanks.
So when they bomb the church, it's because they don't want the church.
In this episode, we'll track the pivots, the inversions, and the masterful bait Ana lays as Tucker edges closer and closer to her position without ever realizing that he's being maneuvered. This is persuasion at its most artful, and we are about to dissect every beat of it.
It is a problem when most Americans agree on something and our politicians know it, but they do the opposite anyway. And I've been increasingly angry with the fact that, I feel that the interests of Americans and how they feel about going to war with Iran, for instance, right? Most Americans do not want to go to war with Iran. And it didn't matter, okay?
What we're seeing here is a microcosm of how Ana uses populist framing throughout her discussion with Tucker. By grounding her point in "most Americans agree," she immediately establishes herself as the voice of the majority rather than another partisan figure. She clearly understands Tucker's audience and chooses her ground carefully. She knows that they don't react strongly to humanitarian appeals, but they do respond viscerally to stories about elites ignoring ordinary people, and she's speaking that language fluently.
Most Americans agree on something, and our politicians know it, but they do the opposite anyway.
It is truly impressive how easily Ana leans into this America First framing through her emphasis of interests of Americans, deliberately avoiding progressive internationalist language. She's intentionally combining progressive outrage with right-wing popularism, an effective approach that bridges the left-right divide and creates common ground that both audiences can stand on.
I feel that the interests of Americans and how they feel about going to war with Iran, for instance, right? Most Americans do not want to go to war with Iran.
It's identity fusion, and it is brilliant because it effectively disarms Tucker from any potential defensive response. Now, before we move on, let's look at her anti-democratic indictment, one she makes personal with the disclosure, "I've been increasingly angry," which creates intimacy and authenticity.
I've been increasingly angry with the fact that
She points out that even when we the people agree, our leaders do the opposite, and she lands this betrayal with 3 devastating words. It doesn't matter.
most Americans do not want to go to war with Iran. And it didn't matter.
It's smart, tapping into populist rage, and it's something that Tucker's audience already interprets as proof that democracy is broken. She's not telling them anything new, she's merely confirming what they already suspect. And by sharing their frustration, she effectively allows them to form a meaningful connection without the usual partisan performance getting in the way.
Most Americans do not want to go to war with Iran. And it didn't matter, okay? The United States bombed Iran's nuclear sites on behalf of Israel anyway, which could have led to a full-blown hot war. It didn't because of Iran having restraint, but we're not done yet.
Pressing on, Ana carefully plants the seed of American subordination with the words, "on behalf of Israel." She knows that Tucker's Christian audience might resist direct criticism of Israel, so she leads them there gradually, dropping just enough hints to avoid triggering defensive reactions.
The United States bombed Iran's nuclear sites on behalf of Israel anyway.
The key point is her attribution of peace to Iran having restraint. This fundamentally inverts the default narrative of Iran as the perpetual aggressor, clearly priming Tucker to question the received wisdom about Middle Eastern dynamics.
Which could have led to a full-blown hot war. It didn't because of Iran having restraint.
Oh, and notice the deliberate false cause fallacy here, as this is particularly tactical. This fallacy occurs when someone assumes that a correlation between two things means that one caused the other. For example, gas prices dropped after my party took power. That is proof that we fixed the economy.
It's the second cheapest price for a gallon of gas on Memorial Day since 2003, thanks to President Trump.
No, that is just how global oil markets fluctuate.
It didn't because of Iran having restraint.
While reductive, it resonates strongly. The narrative she crafts is that of elites ignoring the needs and desires of ordinary citizens while dragging the country towards unwanted wars. Wars Washington had no intention of avoiding, but which Ana casts Iran as single-handedly preventing.
It didn't because of Iran having restraint, but we're not done yet. And
But
so
don't you feel ashamed that it didn't lead to nuclear war? This is the new line.
I know.
Notice how Tucker's sarcasm isn't targeting Ana, but instead mocks their shared critics. That is pivotal. He's not challenging her, he's performing camaraderie through shared ridicule.
Don't you feel ashamed that it didn't lead to nuclear war? This is the new line.
I know.
This is remarkably rapid alignment. He's already treating her as an ally in their mutual contempt for established narratives. And remember, this is a man who's peddled all sorts of conservative conspiracy theories and championed Trumpism.
The replacement theory, but
It was not a theory, it's a reality.
And the second reason that people love Trump, and I put myself in this category, it's why I'm here today.
Yet here he is, siding with one of its most fierce critics.
This is the new line.
I know.
You are wrong. You're an idiot.
That's, by the way, that line is
How
stupid.
dare you worry about that?
Look, I am not a fan of Tucker, especially that laugh. But but how he presses the joke demonstrates how comfortable he's become. This isn't the adversarial dynamic you'd expect from people on opposite sides of the political spectrum.
This is the new
I
line.
know.
They've even created solidarity by mocking their critics together, normalizing cross-partisan unity through one of the strongest bonding mechanisms in political rhetoric. Nothing brings people together quite like making fun of a common enemy. And that is exactly what's happening here. Except the enemy is the entire foreign policy establishment.
How
Stupid.
dare you worry about that?
Yeah, we're not. By the way, it's not over yet, and don't get too cocky. For the people making that point, don't get too cocky.
But why is it shameful to worry about a nuclear war or worry about a World War III? Why is that? It's being held up by the normal tiny brain people as like, evidence that you're just a ridiculous person. Your prediction was wrong.
Right. Well,
We didn't have a nuclear war. Shut up.
Tucker may be continuing his jokes, but Ana continues her subtle work in political alignment. She marks herself and Tucker as we, continuing the steady dissolution of left-right boundary and reinforcing the shared identity that has been developing throughout the exchange. Now, from a logical standpoint, Tucker's dismissal of critics as tiny-brained people
It's being held up by the normal tiny brain people.
is a clear ad hominem fallacy, when someone attacks the person instead of addressing the argument. This is one of the most common fallacies you'll see in any discourse. For instance, of course she wants to bring higher taxes to the rich. She's broke. This doesn't touch the actual case for tax policy, does it? It just discredits the speaker by insulting their financial situation.
It's being held up by the normal tiny brain people.
Critics of both Ana and Tucker are, in this case, being dismissed as stupid instead of being engaged on substance. Yet, unlike with other examples, this evasion isn't trying to win a logical argument. They're building an emotional coalition. And frankly, tribalism works, folks.
We didn't have a nuclear war. Shut up.
Well, maybe those folks have a point. Maybe we're the baddies. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be more concerned about profits for, bomb makers and weapons manufacturers and private contractors and the mercenaries that are currently working over in Gaza to shoot and kill people as they're waiting for humanitarian aid.
At this point, Ana joins in fully with the mockery, dropping, "Maybe we're the baddies," with a sly smile, a great reference to a joke from that Mitchell and Webb look.
Hans, are we the baddies?
And she follows it up with a sarcastic question. Maybe we shouldn't worry about the people getting shot, but rather those whose profit would be impacted if the war stopped.
Maybe we should be more concerned about profits for, bomb makers and weapons manufacturers and private contractors.
In doing this, she's expertly layering moral outrage with corruption and profiteering, tapping into anti-corporate, anti-elite sentiment, once again framing the issue in terms Tucker's base will find persuasive. From the empathetic side of the audience, her description of mercenaries who shoot and kill people who are waiting for humanitarian aid sparks visceral revulsion.
The mercenaries that are currently working over in Gaza to shoot and kill people as they're waiting for humanitarian aid.
For the more nationalistic and isolationist side, she doesn't ask them to care about foreign casualties out of moral principle. Rather, she emphasizes that they're being robbed to pay for the killing. You see, everyone is captured in her argument. Everyone should oppose the arming of Israel.
To shoot and kill people as they're waiting for humanitarian aid.
So how does that, it does feel like I've spent 35 years not talking about that topic because one, I don't really have on a native level like super strong views about it. It's not my country. I wish everyone well in every country. And I mean that.
Okay, this is funny. Tucker claims that he doesn't have super strong views about it, portraying his long silence as disinterest rather than complicity, signalling the topic hasn't been a central concern for him until recently.
One, I don't really have on a native level like super strong views about it. It's not my country. I wish everyone well.
Essentially, by presenting himself as someone without a firm position, he makes it easy to pick a side now. You see, he wasn't wrong before, just uninvolved.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Genius, right? You can't be blamed for not taking a stance if you've never really understood the issue. What this disclosure reveals is that Ana has successfully created a psychological safe space for him to admit hesitation, a notable achievement given their ideological opposition. But really, I laugh the most at Tucker's "It's not my country, I wish everyone well."
It's not my country. I wish everyone well.
It's a flimsy way to preempt accusations of apathy or nationalism, and it is pathetically weak. It comes across as, I don't really care, but hopefully no one dies.
In every country, and I mean that.
This defense suggests sensitivity to being attacked on this issue in the past. But why? He's taken plenty of heat for his white grievance and great replacement rhetoric. Or did those not matter because the criticism came from outside of his audience? Well, who can say? Nobody knows.
I wish everyone well in every country, and I mean that. However, it just got so in my face that I had to say 4 things about it, for which I've been, spent the rest of my life trying to deal with that. The effects of being called those names.
Right then, did you catch how Tucker makes himself a reluctant truth teller, one who was punished for his minimal commentary?
Spent the rest of my life trying to deal with that. The effects of being called those names.
He's the persecuted outsider, a role that resonates powerfully with his audience, who see themselves similarly victimized by elite consensus. Never mind that Tucker is, of course, one of the elites. But I do wonder how many in his audience notice that his concern isn't presented as a moral awakening, but as a response to personal criticism.
For which I've been, spent the rest of my life trying to deal with that. The effects of being called those names.
What compels him to speak isn't the suffering itself, it's the backlash that he faced. In fact, this constitutes an appeal to pity fallacy, when someone attempts to win support for an argument or an idea by exploiting sympathy. To give an example, I deserve a Nobel Prize, I've done incredible things, and the left hates me. Notice what's happening. The focus isn't on the supposed incredible things, but on how unfairly the speaker claims to be treated.
They will never give me a Nobel Peace Prize.
What would happen if they really...
I deserve it, but they will never give it to me.
This is straight out of the narcissist's playbook, recasting criticism as persecution, bidding for sympathy rather than offering proof. But since we're not qualified to hand out a diagnostic, we'll leave it there. In Tucker's case, by pointing to how unfairly he was treated for just saying 4 things, he shifts attention away from the substance of his views, showing he cares more about his perceived persecution rather than what's happening in Gaza.
However, it just got so in my face that I had to say 4 things about it, for which I've been, spent the rest of my life trying to deal with that. The effects of being called those names. But I feel like all of a sudden, people you would not expect to weigh in on this, actually, this is too much.
Yeah. And I love it. I'm glad that that's happening. And I hope...
You feel that there's been a change?
I do feel it. I mean, definitely. If it were the Bush years and this whole scenario were playing out during those years, the kinds of things I've been hearing people say publicly, I would not have heard.
We continue our theme of affirmation, with Ana openly validating Tucker's sense of shift, rather than challenging his victimhood. It's served her well so far, gradually pulling this populist nationalist along with her script.
If it were the Bush years and this whole scenario were playing out during those years...
By bringing up the Bush years, she astutely establishes historical common ground, a shared history of opposition to neoconservative wars. Well, with Tucker, at least, by the end of the mid-2000s. The connection compounds their alignment by situating them on the same side of a long-running conflict, not just this one moment. Ana is also making a particularly subtle but ingenious move by allowing him to craft his anti-Gaza narrative by tying it to his past stance on the Iraq War. In doing so, she lends his position more authenticity and respectability. This move also pressures Tucker to double down, having his past invoked puts him in a corner, making it harder to walk away from the stance now.
The kinds of things I've been hearing people say publicly, I would not have heard.
And she ties it together by emphasizing that others are now speaking out, placing them as part of the growing movement rather than isolated dissenters. This isn't partisan politics, it's a moral issue that everyone can work together on.
But I think what's happening this time around is you really can't deny what you're seeing on the ground in Gaza. You can't deny what's happening in the West Bank, not just in regard to Palestinians, Palestinian Muslims, but also Palestinian Christians.
This is the moment that made me want to cover this discussion. This is unquestionably the rhetorical masterstroke.
But also Palestinian Christians.
By foregrounding the attack on Christians, she tailors the emotional weight of her argument directly to the values of Tucker and his audience. You see, they generally hold little empathy for Muslim suffering. If anything, they often hold active hostility towards them. So Ana sidesteps that barrier by centering Christians instead. What makes this so exceptional is also what makes it so odd. She bypasses the grotesque scale of suffering, hundreds of thousands of Palestinians dead, displaced or starving, and zeroes in on Christian suffering.
But also Palestinian Christians.
For context, Gaza's 2 million people include barely 1,000 Christians. In the West Bank, there are tens of thousands more, but still a small minority. Centering on them is wildly disproportionate focus, but rhetorically, it is devastatingly effective. By zooming in on the tiny sliver Tucker's audience is predisposed to care about, she plays directly into their bias. She doesn't need to be morally inclusive here. In fact, inclusivity would weaken the move. And then she locks it in with repetitions of "you can't deny."
You really can't deny what you're seeing on the ground in Gaza.
With that phrase, she cements her argument as observable fact rather than interpretation. Disagreement becomes equivalent to denying reality, which even the most hardened conspiracy theorist would vehemently oppose.
Not just in regard to Palestinians, Palestinian Muslims, but also Palestinian Christians. You can't deny the fact that that one and only Catholic church in Gaza was bombed, was attacked. You can't deny the fact that churches have been targeted in the West Bank as well. People can lie to us as much as they want, but the videos are out there.
This is yet another excellent appeal to Tucker's base. His audience is packed with conspiracy theorists like himself, so Ana leans straight into their distrust of mainstream narratives. Her message is simple. See for yourself. Don't trust the authorities. It doesn't even matter if they'll look it up. The simple act of insisting that they're being lied to will bring Tucker and his audience to her side.
People can lie to us as much as they want, but the videos are out there.
It's a really clever case of cherry picking, when someone only selects evidence that supports their argument while ignoring data that contradicts it. Essentially, highlighting one kind of evidence while ignoring the broader picture. Ana doesn't cite official reports or comprehensive data. Instead, she gestures to the videos out there as if they tell the whole story.
The videos are out there.
And sure, those videos are real, but they're also selective. It's the same move as saying, my neighbor lost his job after immigrants moved in, so immigrants are destroying the economy.
They took our job!
It's persuasive because the evidence feels immediate, but it strips away the context, the time, the location, the perpetrators. Ana exploits that raw impact, knowing that Tucker's audience will privilege visceral visuals over institutional reports. I mean, consider the omissions. Ana doesn't cite the abundant factual reporting on Gaza and the West Bank, including UN verification of Israeli attacks. She knows that Tucker's audience doesn't care, and worse, that mentioning these reports could even reduce her credibility in their eyes. So, instead, she gestures vaguely to videos out there. I hate it, but I love it.
People can lie to us as much as they want, but the videos are out there.
How do you blow up a church if you've got munitions, laser-guided munitions that are so sophisticated that they can take out, a guy in an SUV from 30,000 feet? How do you blow up a church with a giant cross on top of it?
Just look at how well Ana's subtle effort has paid off. After steering the conversation towards attacks on Christian churches,
you can't deny the fact that that one and only Catholic church in Gaza was bombed.
Tucker himself picks up the thread, asking a simple logical question that implies that the strikes were intentional.
How do you blow up a church with a giant cross on top?
And that's the critical element. Ana has stepped back, letting Tucker take ownership of the argument and present it as if it were his own. The role reversal is crucial. When the point comes from him, it carries far more weight with his audience than if Ana had spelt it out herself.
How do you blow up a church with a giant cross on top of it?
It was just an accident, Tucker. It was an accident.
It's not the first church that's
No,
been blown
it's
up.
not.
It's
And
not
it wasn't
even
an
close.
accident.
Ana expertly turns one of the most common claims by the Israeli government into mockery, and she delivers it dripping with sarcasm in the same dismissive tone characteristic of official Israeli and mainstream media responses.
It was just an accident, Tucker. It was
But
an
it's like
accident.
The parody makes the point clear. The accident line is absurd on its face. By ridiculing the claim while affirming Tucker's skepticism, Ana nudges him towards the realization that she wants him to reach. The exchange feels like a shared revelation, but rhetorically it lands as Tucker's own. This sense of ownership cements his buy-in and strengthens the role reversal, with Ana leading while Tucker follows.
It's not the first church that's
No,
been blown
it's
up.
not.
It's
And
not
it wasn't
even
an
close.
accident. It wasn't an accident.
But what is the answer? Can anyone get an answer?
Now then, normally, Tucker tells his audience what's true, or at least frames his rhetorical questions so the answers are obvious. But here he breaks that pattern. He hands Ana, a left-wing speaker, the role of teacher, allowing her to deliver the truth directly. It's a remarkable inversion of his usual dynamic, and it signals to his audience what comes next truly matters.
So what is the answer? Can anyone get an answer?
I know the answer. Israel wants a Jewish state and they want to expand. They have something known as the Greater Israel Project. They intend to annex the whole of the West Bank.
Ana accepts the expert role that Tucker has offered her, presenting herself as a source of clarity. And by casting her answers as knowledge rather than opinion, she claims authority that Tucker's audience would normally reject from a progressive voice. But because Tucker gave her the floor, they're primed to listen.
What is the answer? Can anyone get an answer?
She cements her role by moving into specifics, providing labels and keywords that can be searched rather than mere assertions.
They have something known as the Greater Israel Project. They intend to annex the whole of the West Bank.
To clarify, the Greater Israel Project she's been referring to has been recently publicly endorsed by Prime Minister Netanyahu and other members of his government. It originates in hardline Zionist, extremist and settler movements that envision expansion not only through the Gaza Strip and the West Bank, but also parts of Lebanon, Syria, Egypt and Jordan. And, as we've seen, many current Israeli government practices do align with its principles. The IDF protects settlers in the West Bank as they displace Palestinians from their homes. Several ministers have publicly advocated for the forced removal or transfer of Gazans. And the ongoing military operation has essentially leveled huge parts of Gaza and displaced large numbers of civilians. To be sure, multiple government ministers, including Netanyahu, have openly endorsed ethnic cleansing, and the settlement strategy is explicitly intended to prevent creation of a viable Palestinian state. They've also recently invaded Syria and Lebanon and continue to advance their occupations there. Ana has compressed this reality into a short soundbite that could be checked later.
Israel wants a Jewish state and they want to expand. They have something known as the Greater Israel Project. They intend to annex the whole of the West Bank. In fact, Miriam Adelson legally bribed Donald Trump to ensure that that happens.
There's a subtle move here. Ana calls campaign donations legal bribery and invokes Trump to test Tucker's audience, framing it as corruption without actually condemning Trump himself. It's a careful bit of navigation. She acknowledges influence peddling, but avoids alienating his base. Basically, just as she let Tucker state his position without confronting his past views, now she gives his audience the same permission structure, casting the villain not as Trump, but as Israel bribing him.
Miriam Adelson legally bribed Donald Trump to ensure that that happens.
The blame gets externalized so they can keep their loyalty intact while still nodding along to her critique. But let's dig deeper into the claim. Miriam Adelson donated about $100 million to Trump's 2024 campaign through her Preserve America PAC, pushing for more pro-Israel policies. Now, obviously, massive campaign donations raise serious concerns about money in politics.
AIPAC stands for the America-Israeli Political Action Committee.
What does it lobby for?
So, to be honest, not a whole lot effectively.
And I very much get why it's called legal bribery. Feels right. But technically, at least according to the US, it isn't bribery. Adding to this, the Adelsons weren't just bankrolling Trump. They've been mega donors for years, almost entirely to Republicans. The broader reality reinforces Ana's larger point. Wealthy pro-Israel donors have oversized influence in Washington, and like clockwork, US policy keeps lining up with Israeli government goals.
In fact, Miriam Adelson legally bribed Donald Trump to ensure that that happens. And Israel announced that that's what they're going to do, and they're doing it. When it comes to Gaza, I mean, Hamas is so dumb because the atrocities they committed on October 7th gave Netanyahu and the Israeli government the perfect excuse to essentially do what they've always wanted to do, which is take that land.
Ana pulls back a little to interject some both-sidism before doubling down on her critique of Israel. By calling Hamas dumb and explicitly labeling October 7th as atrocities, she stakes clear moral ground, avoiding any suggestion of sympathy for terrorism.
Hamas is so dumb.
It's a quick but deliberate move. She acknowledges Palestinian violence without legitimizing Israel's disproportionate retaliation. This balance also prevents Tucker from jumping in with self-defense framing, keeping the focus where she wants it, on Israel's response. In logical terms, this is a form of false cause reasoning, akin to post hoc, where one event is treated as if it directly caused another. For example, I wore my lucky socks to the game and my team won, so my socks caused the victory.
Gave Netanyahu and the Israeli government the perfect excuse to essentially do what they've always wanted to do, which is take that land.
By framing Hamas's atrocities as what gave Netanyahu the excuse, Ana suggests a neat cause and effect where the reality is far more complex. Israel's settlement policies and expansionist goals long predate October 7th. The attack didn't create those ambitions, it merely accelerated them. Still, the simplification works rhetorically because it makes the exploitation of tragedy feel immediate and visceral.
Hamas is so dumb because the atrocities they committed on October 7th gave Netanyahu and the Israeli government the perfect excuse to essentially do what they've always wanted to do, which is take that land. They're going to take that land. That's what they want. They're going to ethnically cleanse whatever remains of the Palestinian people. They're going to force neighboring countries probably to absorb 2 million people. And then at the same time, they're going to have settlers move on in, rebuild Gaza.
Well, damn. Ana escalates with a striking claim that Israel intends to push 2 million Palestinians into neighboring countries and then move settlers in to rebuild Gaza. It's devastating and strategically brilliant. She reframes the US, whose political right is obsessed with stopping immigration, as backing a foreign ally that would, in her words, force the mass displacement of refugees onto other nations.
They're going to force neighboring countries probably to absorb 2 million people.
The irony is brutal. Many Trump voters railed behind him because they feared refugees and migrants entering America. Yet here, Ana casts their own government as complicit in creating and exporting displaced refugees abroad. The inversion is lethal. She takes some of Tucker's audience's deepest anxieties and flips it into a charge of hypocrisy. It's not subtle, and it's not perfectly accurate, but rhetorically, it is devastating because it strikes at the very narrative that defines the American right.
They're going to force neighboring countries probably to absorb 2 million people. And then at the same time, they're going to have settlers move on in, rebuild Gaza. Jared Kushner, by the way, soon after October 7th happened, was like salivating on camera about how that's prime real estate. It's disgusting.
The image of Kushner salivating over prime real estate paints a viscerally sharp picture of greedy elites, one that Tucker's audience instantly recognizes. You can almost see the political cartoon, a bloated businessman drooling over corpses amid rubble. It taps into two instincts at once, non-interventionalism and a deep distrust of elites profiting from foreign wars, which makes it land especially hard.
Was like salivating on camera about how that's prime real estate. It's disgusting.
So what did Kushner actually say? At Harvard in February 2024, his words were,
Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable. It's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterwards.
Notice the language. Gaza as prime real estate.
Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable.
Palestinians as people to be moved out.
From Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out.
Even with that caveat, the takeaway is unmistakable. Gaza is property to be cleaned up, and its residents are the ones in the way.
Then clean it up, but I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterwards.
He even floated this idea of moving displaced Palestinians into Egypt, without clarifying whether he believed they should be allowed to return.
I know that with diplomacy, maybe you get them into Egypt. I know that that's been refused, but with the right diplomacy, I think it would be possible.
Defenders spun it as a clumsy call for temporary evacuation and rebuilding, while critics heard it as a pitch for permanent displacement. And given Kushner's long record of reducing Palestinian rights to little more than economic development obstacles, it's not hard to see that the latter reading is closer to the truth. Ana doesn't bother with the nuance. She seizes on the greed angle, which rhetorically devastates Tucker's audience, even if Kushner's language was more ambitious. But here's the reality. For rhetoric, facts don't matter. The emotional truth of elite profiteering cuts deeper than any diplomatic doublespeak.
Jared Kushner, by the way, soon after October 7th happened, was like salivating on camera about how that's prime real estate. It's disgusting. But anyway.
How can you move 2 million people right now?
Well, there was a story published this week, I believe it was in the New York Times, where Netanyahu and the Israeli government was in talks with our government in regard to getting aid from the United States in moving Palestinians out of Gaza.
We're seeing the point driven home. American taxpayers are footing the bill for ethnic cleansing. Ana isn't just describing policy, she's dramatizing where the money goes, and that kind of framing hits hard enough to unsettle even those normally indifferent to Palestinian suffering. In February 2025, during Netanyahu's first Washington visit of the year, Trump publicly floated a plan to permanently relocate some 2 million Palestinians from Gaza into neighboring countries, while the US would redevelop the territory as the Riviera of the Middle East.
No more tunnels, no more fear. Gaza is finally here.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it too. We'll own it. Everybody I've spoken to loves the idea of the United States owning that piece of land, developing and creating thousands of jobs with something that will be magnificent.
It was classic Trump bluster, but with Netanyahu standing beside him and a long record of echoing similar ideas, it carried the air of joint endorsement.
There was a story published this week, I believe it was in the New York Times.
By citing the New York Times, Ana also borrows establishment credibility to back her claim. Normally, Tucker's audience dismisses such sources, but outrage changes the rules. When the Times confirms your worst suspicions about government corruption, even its skeptics will pay attention.
There was a story published this week, I believe it was in the New York Times, where Netanyahu and the Israeli government was in talks with our government in regard to getting aid from the United States in moving Palestinians out of Gaza. So when they bomb the church, it's because they don't want the church. That land is supposed to be part of the Jewish state.
Ana has been given free rein to monologue, and she uses that space to swing back to Christian persecution, Tucker's strongest emotional anchor, casting Israel's strikes as deliberate attacks on Christians in order to keep him locked into her critical perspective. We've seen this strategy work before, but here, watch this. This is the jackpot.
So when they bomb the church, it's because they don't want the church. That land is supposed to be part of the Jewish state.
You're not allowed to use my tax dollars to bomb churches.
Wow, what a breakthrough. What a phenomenal achievement for Ana. The shift from abstract foreign policy to Tucker's own wallet and values shows that she's made him feel directly implicated. It's no longer something happening over there to those people who he casually wishes well.
I wish everyone well, in every country.
It's happening with his money to people that he cares about.
You're not allowed to use my tax dollars to bomb churches.
He's moved from tentative questioning to categorical moral conviction. And the genius is that Ana never forced the shift. She guided him subtly, and he arrived at the conclusion believing that it was his own.
That land is supposed to be part of the Jewish
You're not
state.
allowed to use my tax dollars to bomb churches.
Well, that's what they're doing.
Notice that Ana doesn't press the point or overplay her hand. She lets Tucker carry the emotional weight, simply confirming his conclusion.
Well, that's what they're doing.
By staying concise, Ana avoids breaking the spell of Tucker's outrage. The brevity signals confidence. She doesn't need to argue because Tucker has already convinced himself. It is brilliant. Ana is onto something that many left-leaning people are not.
You can't deny the fact that that one and only Catholic church in Gaza was bombed.
All right, so in the end, this isn't a story about Ana Kasparian's mastery, although it's impressive. It's about how to actually have a conversation with the other side. The mistake is thinking that because we use the same words, we understand each other, but that is not how language works. Words are vessels for values, and until we speak to the values of the other side, we're just talking past each other. Ana walked into hostile territory and, with patience and precision, turned a notorious cultural warrior into a mouthpiece for her argument. What sealed it was simple: taxpayers' dollars funding bombs dropped on churches.
So when they bomb the church, it's because they don't want the church.
Tucker didn't suddenly develop empathy for Gaza or experience a burst of humanitarian concern. What moved him were loyalty, betrayal, and money. Universal triggers that can bend even the hardest ideologue. When those are in play, the walls crack.
You're not allowed to use my tax dollars to bomb churches.
That is the lesson. If we want to reach across the populist divide, facts and figures will not do the work alone. We have to speak their language, tie our arguments to their values, to their red lines. That is how you actually move them. Only then will the walls start to crack. Anyhow, as always, thank you kindly for the view, and thank you to everyone who supports the channel, including today's sponsor, Aura. Click the link below to grab an exclusive Aura deal. Thanks.